Hi, welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, I want to talk to you about something that has just happened in the USA that I think is a turning point in the war in Iran. Because up until now, the story has been mostly about oil prices going up. But today, we're seeing real world consequences starting to feed through. We've now got gasoline sitting at more than $6 per gallon in California. The US average is around $4.40. Jet fuel prices are surging, and now we've got a major US airline that has collapsed. Spirit Airlines has effectively shut down its operations after failing to secure a rescue deal. And for me, this is the key point. This looks like the first major corporate casualty of this oil shock so far, but it's unlikely to be the last. Now, before we get into the details of all of this, could I ask anybody that hasn't subscribed yet to please hit that subscribe button? It only takes you a millisecond, and it really does help me with the algorithm and also puts a smile on my face. Right, let's get into it. First of all, what is Spirit Airlines? Now, this is not a tiny business. Spirit is one of the biggest low-cost airlines in the United States. In fact, it was one of the biggest in the world. Bright yellow planes, ultra cheap fares, you pay for everything else. That's their model. I'm sure you're familiar with it in many countries. At its peak, Spirit carried 44 million passengers a year. In fact, it carried that in 2025. So this is a seriously large airline. Millions of customers, thousands of staff, huge presence across the USA, the Caribbean, and Latin America. And that's why this story matters, because when something like this collapses, it's not just the company disappearing, it's capacity disappearing, it's competition disappearing, and that feeds directly into airline prices. Now, let's be clear, Spirit was already in trouble before the war in Iran started. This wasn't a healthy company that suddenly got hit overnight. It's been losing money for years. It racked up around $8 billion worth of debt, and it's already been through bankruptcy. It had a failed merger with JetBlue, so this was a fragile business. But here's the key point. It was expected to survive. It was expected to restructure. It was expected to come out of the other side of this bankruptcy. And then fuel prices surged as a result of the war in Iran. And that was the final straw for this company. Because for an airline, fuel is everything. It's usually the single biggest cost. And for a low-cost airline like Spirit, margins are already wafer thin. So when fuel prices spike, there's nowhere to hide. So let's put some context around that. Jet fuel in the USA is currently sitting at around $4.50 per gallon. At the start of 2026, it was sitting at around $2.50. So we're talking about a 70% increase in just a few months. That is enormous. And if your entire business model was built on one set of assumptions, and suddenly those assumptions are completely wrong, such as the price of your fuel, your whole plan starts to fall apart. And that's what looks to have happened here. Spirit was reportedly trying to secure a $500 million emergency package from the US government, but that deal failed. Talks broke down, and the airline has now stopped flying. It's out of business. So for me, this is the key takeaway here. Spirit didn't collapse because of the oil prices, but the oil shock appears to have been the trigger that pushed it over the edge. It finished it off. And this is exactly how economic shocks work. They don't hit everybody equally. They hit the weakest first. And right now, every airline in the world is under pressure. So this is not just the USA story. This is global. Every airline on the planet is now dealing with the same problem. Fuel costs are surging. If we take Air France KLM, they've already made an announcement that the increase in fuel prices will add around $2.4 billion to their fuel bill in 2026. That's the current estimate. It could actually be higher than that. Now, that is a massive increase, and they've already started scaling back growth as a result of that. And it's not just that business. Every airline is now facing the same decision. Do you absorb the cost and lose money and profitability, or do you increase ticket prices and risk losing customers, or do you just cut the number of flights? Well, all three of those options are bad for the global economy, and in reality, most airlines will end up doing a mix of all three, which means higher ticket prices, fewer flights, and lower profitability. And this feeds directly through to consumers like you and me. There are estimates already suggesting that fuel costs alone could add $100 per long-haul ticket, so that's real-life impact. It's not theoretical, this is hitting people in their pockets. And now add another layer to this. When a low-cost airline like Spirit disappears, you lose cheap capacity. That means less competition, and that usually means higher prices for everyone. So you've got a double hit. Fuel costs going up, competition going down. And that is a bad combination for you and me. And this is where the story becomes much bigger than just airlines, because what we're now starting to see is the multiplier effect kicking in. We've talked about the multiplier many times before. Airlines are facing much higher fuel costs. So what do? They raise their ticket prices. Now, if you're sitting there and you haven't booked your holiday yet, your vacation, you probably want to get on with it, because if this situation continues, prices are definitely continuing to go higher. That's the reality of the situation. But here's the problem. When ticket prices go up, demand starts to come down. That's simple economics. People travel less, they delay trips, they cancel holidays, they cut back. And that's where the knock-on effects, the multiplier effects, really start, because airlines are just the first link in the chain. If fewer people are flying, fewer people are arriving at destinations, that means hotels get fewer bookings, restaurants get fewer customers, bars, attractions, entertainment venues all see lower footfall, and at exactly the same time, their costs are also going up. Energy costs are rising, food costs are rising, staff costs are rising, so you've got a really dangerous combination. Revenues going down and costs going up. And when that happens, profits get squeezed. Businesses start cutting back, they reduce staffing, they cut hours, they delay investment. And that's how this spreads into the wider economy, from oil to airlines to tourism to jobs to growth. And this is why I keep saying that this is not just an oil story, this is a global economic shock. And then you layer on top of that the geopolitical situation, because right now there's no sign that this war is going away. Donald Trump has made it very clear that the USA is not backing down from its blockade, and they're actively considering their next move, whether that's further military action or simply maintaining the current restrictions. But either way, the key point is that this disruption is not temporary, it's not a one-week spike, it's not a short-term shock. This is now something that could continue for weeks and potentially months. And if that happens, all of these pressures we're talking about, they don't ease, they intensify. Fuel prices stay high, airline costs stay high, ticket prices keep rising, demand keeps falling, and the knock-on effects across tourism and the wider economy become more severe every single day. That's the real risk here, because the longer this goes on, the bigger the economic damage becomes. So the bottom line is this: Spirit Airlines didn't collapse out of nowhere. It already had problems, it had debt, it had losses. But the surge in fuel prices has been the trigger that finally made survival impossible for that business. And that's why this matters, because in any economic shock, the weakest companies fall first, and then the pressure moves up the chain. Spirit looks like the first major corporate casualty from this oil price shock, but based on everything we're seeing right now, it's very unlikely to be the last. So I'll keep you posted on any further news and developments as and when they occur, but hopefully you found today's video useful, informative, and most importantly, thought-provoking. If you have liked what I've said, then please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Don't forget, I'm currently running my competition where you can win my property or a cash alternative prize. There's a limited amount of time left to run on this competition, so if you'd like to get involved, please scan the QR code on the screen now or click the link in the description below. I've got some really good deals on the go at the moment. You get lots of free tickets if you buy a ticket, so please get involved in that. Thank you also to everyone that supported me in other ways. If you've bought me a coffee or sent me YouTube super thanks or signed up as a patron or a member, thank you for that support. Really does help to keep me motivated and making videos like this. I'd also like to mention that the Joe and Naz channel is now live. This is my latest venture with one of my best friends, Naz. It's fun. It will put a smile on your face. We're doing lots of really interesting and exciting things. And you can check out our latest video right now, where we went to Gordon Ramsay's latest venture in London, his Hell's Kitchen that he's opened. It's the first one in the UK. This is based on his TV show that's still running in the USA. It finished in the UK a long time ago. It is absolutely huge, but it's really expensive. So check out what we thought of that restaurant. You'll see some really interesting reviews in there. So please support us. We're only just starting out. We've got a small number of subscribers, so if you could go and subscribe and watch that video, maybe some of the other videos, really would appreciate it. I don't think you'll be disappointed. And in the meantime, here is something to put a smile on your face. And just before getting to that, just to remind you, if you want to watch that Gordon Ramsay video, just click the link at the end of today's video.